Esteemed SICHL GMs, welcome. And I know what you're thinking. Thank God Henry is back for another session of the preseason video power rankings. Your thoughts and voices were heard last year. We want more Henry. Well, you got it. But it's only thanks to my really good friends joining me here today. We have GM of your championship now, Nova Scotia Schooners, Eric Schneider. Eric, say hello.
Good day, gentlemen.
Excellent. And of course, a very special treat. Eric, you're a special treat, but we get you a lot. You don't get our intrepid, intelligent, unflappable, indomitable commissioner of the SICHL and GM of your Fredericton Express. We have Mark McRae. Mark, thank you for joining and say hi.
Hi, Henry.
Eric texted me and said, I'm sorry, I don't have anything ready. And that's fine, because like Chris Candido, we are no gimmicks needed here for the video power rankings. And for the two of you who got that reference, you know what I'm talking about. I was actually thinking, guys, that later on I might do a Mortal Kombat power rankings. And I thought this is actually perfect because we have Mark as Shang Tsung, who is the overseer of, all the brutal tournament that is the SICHL season. And Eric, we have you, Prince Goro, our reigning champion. And that means that I will be Johnny Cage. And the good news is I won't need to punch you in the lower region because the sim does that for us every year. Eric, we are starting right now, and we're going to start as usual from the bottom and go to the top. So that means we won't be talking about Eric and Mark's teams very soon, and we will be talking about mine very quickly. Eric, who's first? Who is last, maybe on paper but not in our hearts? Who is last at number 29 this year in the preseason SICHL Power Rankings Video Edition?
At 29, bringing up the rear, we give you the Seattle Grunge.
Now, wait a minute.
And boy, are they a grungy team.
Now, wait a minute. Does that mean that there is at least one team worse than mine?
At least one. Spoiler alert.
Eric, tell us about Seattle. They're in a bit of a rebuild right now.
Indeed, they are. Seattle has a couple things going for them. Really, the two main pieces being Brady Tkachuk and Boone Jenner. And there's an awfully big gap between those two, which tells you just how dire it is if I have to bring up Boone Jenner as one of the pros for Phil's team.
Right.
If we're going over the rankings here, 24th out of 29 in forwards, and then dead last for defensive and goaltending strength. So, yeah, it's going to be a long season, as Phil aptly put it in the subject of his most recent SICHL.com article.
I think my favorite part of preseason, because really there's only one good part about preseason, and that's seeing other teams' players get injured and GMs freaking out about them getting injured. Because it's not like, Mark, it's not like these guys need like a training camp or warming up. But why does everyone put in their best roster? It doesn't matter who you put in, someone's gonna get hurt, right?
Got to buff those ones and zeros, right?
I guess so. And Mark has nothing to do with it. You're totally innocent.
I'm totally innocent. You'll notice I don't play very many of my starters in preseason myself.
I mean, really, the GMs that do it, maybe they're thinking of the few fans in the stands, and they really want to give them some to work with. But I always found even like testing like chemistry and stuff, preseason is probably not the time to do it. Even though you think it would be a good time to do it, you just mean you might lose someone to a bruised left toe for 90 days.
Well, preseason is really good for us to test all the new features we've added to the website, basically.
Aha! Aha! So there's your lesson, GMs. Put in guinea pigs for the preseason. And Eric, Seattle has their first and second and seventh next year, but they have traded away quite a few draft picks already.
Yeah, it's an interesting method, but Phil's a savvy fellow. I'm sure there's method to the madness here.
Absolutely.
Let's not forget that Seattle picked up a couple of really good first-round picks in the most recent draft, Alexander Holtz and Marco Rossi. So,
yeah,
very true.
I really liked this draft. That's for sure. All right. Well, good luck to Seattle. And next up, surely it's me, but it's not me. Eric, there's another team worse than me. Who is number 28?
At 28, we have a different ham. Not Hamburg, but Hamilton.
I always see their
Hamilton STEELHAWKS.
I'm like, that's my team. No, I'm not. I'm the other ham.
Unnecessarily confusing. Please move your team. I think everybody wants you to do it. Yeah, 28 represents the 28th worst forwards, the 28th worst goaltending, and the 26th worst defense. So if Phil's having a long season, yeah, I'd say Fichetti is having a similarly long season.
I know this team well, or at least they look familiar because they look like me. They are in for a bit of a rebuild.
And yeah, Chris took an interesting route with it. He went about as full scorched earth as I've ever seen in this league. It's one thing to do a full teardown and rebuild, but he was even dumping guys that had some value. He was just cutting, slashing, and burning left and right last season. He got down as low as I think he had 30-something assets on his team at one point, and now he's up to a still very trim 58 total. So lots and lots of room to acquire spare parts from folks if he should so choose.
If anything, around the holidays, he'll need to expand his belt.
Dare say some very overly tight belt tightening going on here.
And there's a worse defensive core you can build around than Drysdale, Romanov, Sanderson, and Cam York. That's a very strong stable to start with. And Mark, they have a I believe the term is a buttload of prospects in the next few years. So they're doing it right.
Yeah, I mean that's the good news. They also had a strong draft. They also wisely traded one of their many first round picks this year to the Express. Thinking further down the road, so that now they have 2 firsts next year. Very savvy move. Anyway, yeah, he definitely burned it right down. I was concerned he wasn't going to have enough players to get through the season, but he has signed a number of, as you so aptly put it, spare parts at league minimum. So,
and
hopefully none of them get injured.
Yeah, and then
twist the mustache.
Chinnikov at 34 could work out really nicely. Yeah, I really like their draft there, and they still have some tradable assets that they want to keep kind of spiraling down, but in a long-term spiraling up. That's pretty cool. All right, and okay, finally we get to me. Eric, I'm number 27.
Indeed you are. Congratulations.
Hamburglers. Mark, what do you think about my team, and why am I 27th?
Well, according to Eric's rankings, you have a half-decent goaltending and not much else.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, again, much like the other Ham, you've got a couple of stud defenseman prospects. Rasmus Dahlin or something. Bowen Byram. And I think it's time that you start trying to win, Henry. I think on behalf of the rest of the league.
I always try.
It's been.
It's
been when. Where's my championship banner? 1 second.
I didn't think this was going to be an introduction.
I have it right here. Now,
I don't know what that is.
Was this also the last time that you were any good?
No, because Guy beat me in the finals 2 years after you beat me in the finals.
All right. Well, it seems like it's been a decade. So
sure it does.
That's because he fell backwards into those conference championships thanks to the strategy of Danny DeVito.
What is this? Well, yes. Okay, finally, I will admit that. Yeah,
it's a strong leadership piece.
This year's going to be a tough one, but I'm looking forward to I think the new rules are awesome with the salary floor, and I'm really happy to go for the lottery cup or whatever you want to call it, the points after elimination. I think those two changes are going to be really interesting. You saw that it had a huge influence on free agency this year. This year's free agency was, I wish we had more time to talk about it, because this was I think some GMs hated it. Some GMs loved it. I loved it. I thought it was so fun to watch the crazy prices.
It was delightful.
I was going to say, I think Eric loved it.
It's the most fun I've had in years.
Speaking of rule changes, all right. So we'll move on to we're giving a good brisk pace here, fellas. I love it. Number 26, we've got the Boston Colonials. Eric, tell me about the Boston Colonials. They too have blown it up.
They've blown it up very effectively, taking a slightly different approach from the STEELHAWKS in that they like having an absolutely ballooned group of players there. Not at all familiar with that method myself. but hugging that 100 asset number is clearly key to Gary's strategy.
Right.
Now, don't let that that shiny 26th rating fool you here. He is one David Perron trade away from being right down there with the bottom of the league. That is the only quality player on that entire roster, aside from his goalie Frank Hughes, who's a franchise player that he can't deal with right now. So beyond that, terrible team on purpose. Good job, Gary. Good luck to you.
I can't believe how many draft picks he had, and being a Senators fan, Mark, you're not surprised to see him draft Stützle and Grieg in the first round. That seemed pretty obvious.
No, not at all. Well, I mean, I think Stützle is going to be a tremendous player. Whether Gary hangs on to him long enough for him to actually play for the Colonials remains to be seen.
People, yeah, whenever you're rebuilding, if I can give one piece of advice to the rebuilders, and not many of them down here have been rebuilding as long as me, the key is patience. Because with our ratings, first of all, in the other leagues, it takes a good 3 to 5 years of cooking sometimes for someone to really emerge. And it's even longer because our oven takes a little longer to preheat. So patience is key. Eric's good at this because whenever I look at most previous draft and I start, having a seizure, he's like, you really don't need to have a seizure about this draft. You need to start freaking about the draft you had 4 years prior, because that's really when you're gonna see the results. So delay your freak out until 4 years from now, and who knows what'll happen between now and then. Yeah, I am happy to have Gary as a fellow team on the rise, but not in the power rankings. He will be in the basement with me and a few others for the whole year, and I look forward to coming up with creative ways to be very optimistic about the teams. So there we go. And I couldn't do it without you, Gary. All right, we're moving along here. Number 25. Now, I should mention, we've got some real surprises, especially in the top, I would say the top 10, maybe even the top like 5. But in particular, we've got some surprising teams. Eric, before all this free agency and draft, you would have been surprised to see Stockholm this low, but Stockholm is at 25. Tell me why that is.
One word for you: Barkov. Tom went and pulled off probably the most surprising trade, certainly in recent memory for me. And it's a hell of a statement. He's going full tilt for that first overall shiny pick that he used on our good friend Lafreniere. That's going to have to pan out for him in a big way to justify the assets he gave up. But fair enough. It's a big gamble, but I appreciate the stakes he's willing to play with here.
Having the first overall is also really, but with experience, I can tell you, it's also really fun. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to help you out long term. But Lafreniere looks like a pretty solid prospect. Mark, what do you think about the Cougars? Always are one of those teams. There's one of about 5 teams that to me are like a roller coaster in the last 5 years, and the Cougars seem like one of them. Any thoughts about the Cougars and their big trade they made?
Yeah, well, I was surprised to see someone like Ian, who won the draft lottery, just throw it in your face like that, Henry. I couldn't believe the rudeness and insensitivity that he showed you by basically immediately trading the pick as soon as he got it. Just such disrespect. But the Cougars, I was surprised surprised to see the Cougars down this low, and then it makes sense though. But I guess I'm just used to seeing the Cougars always kind of in the bottom, top 8, but bottom half of the playoff bracket in the world, and they always seem to sneak in there. But I mean, I can also say from experience, it is fun to pick first overall. Let's hope that it's not a Pat Falloon and it's more of a Jack Hughes that he picked up.
One of the best parts about our league, I find, is the variety of GM styles. No one really does the same thing. We've got guys like, I think Ryan on the Shamrocks, Guy obviously is very active. Ian has been just sort of launched his SICHL career with nothing but like energy and excitement. And I really like that. And Tom's one of those guys too. Like, he's not afraid to make changes and make moves. And come up with some interesting line combinations. You'll see from now and then, and that's what really gives the league part of our swagger, I feel like. So, Tom, good job. We'll see if the trade works out. But for now, you're in the dregs with me. How does that make you feel? I hope you consider that before you pull the trigger. Number 24. Now, can this be the year, please? I've been waiting for SHAMROCKS Tigers to really start climbing the ladder, guys. Eric, are they ready to graduate out of the basement just yet?
Nope.
All right, moving on. Number 23. No. Let's talk about SHAMROCKS Tigers a little bit.
I feel for Sheetal. So he's got a bunch of guys who have been on my list for being like potential value retreads for ages and ages. Guys like Alex Wenberg and Kevin Fiala, where you wonder if this is going to be the year that those players really finally put it together, because they're super skilled. They've shown it before, and then just for whatever reason they can never really connect the dots year to year. There's just no consistency, and his team's just full of those kinds of guys, and it must be a little bit maddening for him, because he's taking in guys that, on the face of it, they are valuable. Like Devin Taves, for example, that's his 5th defenseman down there. That's a guy that the Avalanche just gave up 2 second-rounders for in that other league.
Yeah.
So, should be a valuable guy, but the sim goes and smacks him with a 67 OV rating and 65 defense, and you wonder where the disconnect is. So the fates have been cruel to poor Sheetal here. And sadly, this isn't likely to be his year either, based on what they've done to him.
What I do like is he's got 2 years of back-to-back number 2s in Capo Caco and Quinton Byfield. And then he's also got Puljujarvi, which was a really bad luck, but now he's coming back to the other league. So things might start to turn around for Sheetal soon. Do you think?
I was going to say, I disagree with the Tigers in their own top 5 rankings of their top prospects. Capo Caco is absent from that. Maybe I'm not sure how Capo Caco is not at least number 2 on that list. I would solidly put him number 1 myself, but I realize in the other league he didn't set the world on fire, but that is an up and coming team that he's playing for, and I can only expect that all those young guys on that team are gonna be great. The Tigers definitely are not doing anything this year by the looks of things, but who knows? The sim is fickle.
It is. That it is. And speaking of fickle, actually, I don't know why I'm saying speaking of fickle. We have the Barons up next at 23. I wouldn't really describe any team as fickle. Eric, we're still in that range of probably not really going to make the playoffs. And when I say that, you could say like, oh, well, you never know. The World Conference is always a little wacky. And some teams sometimes get in that you don't really expect. It'll be hard for the Barons to make a move this year.
It'll still be a challenge, for sure. Don't let that 23rd ranking belie where they're actually at in terms of talent relative to the rest of the league. If you've got a bottom tier, Seattle through Stockholm at 29 through 25, they're all really close. There's a slightly better tier with 24 to about 22, and Barons are right smack in the middle of that, but they are miles behind the competitive tier, starting at around 15. So that whole 16 through 22 bunch, that's going to be your playoff bubble group, and these guys are just outside it. So it's going to be really, really challenging to sneak in.
UC Soros getting a 72 is a little unfair. He's not as you're right. He's not as far off. And I don't know if you guys remember, BRNO had this epic run last year where Saros was basically the MVP for a bit of the season. And then predictably, as soon as Saros goes down, so do the Barons. So he's had a little bit of bad luck. He's close. Mark, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel here? Anything you like about the Barons this year?
It's hard for me to say anything nice about the Barons since he sniped my first round pick this year.
Yep,
directly.
That's fair.
Dawson Mercer.
He should have thought about that.
I mean, he's got a great bunch of bottom 6 forwards. Like he's got a solid 24 bottom 6 forwards. He just has no top 6 talent. So I'm struggling to see how he's going to score. Really, I mean, I like Andrew Kopp. I'm not sure why he's not quite as well rated as I might have expected, but I'm sure that's because he had not an amazing year last year in the other league. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Bob sneak in. He's that kind of sneaky guy that could always make something happen to get into that 8th spot.
And he's still got, unless he loses Thornton in the expansion draft, which he might, he's got some tradable assets for a playoff team. Like he's got a couple, like you think, like Phil Pilla or Thornton, if he hangs on to him at the trade deadline, or Marcus Johansson would be not a bad, you know, if a team's looking for some good experience and leadership in the playoffs, you might be able to get some extra assets there.
Or any of that top 4 defense. Guys like Seabrook, Bogosian, Taran, those are all useful guys on expiring deals that are going to be really, really handy come close to the trade deadline.
Good to know.
No suggestions here.
I'm not exactly acquiring for a playoff run just now. Next up, we've got the Shamrocks. And Eric, you know, I love the Shamrocks. I can never tell what Ryan is going to do. And he, like the Barons, they're not quite there, but he's definitely starting to climb out. And actually, I think he's at the top of the standings for preseason. So something might be cooking here.
Like you, I have an eternal spot of fondness in my heart for our dear friend Ryan. The Shamrocks are, without a doubt, the craziest team in the entire league. I never know which way the wind's blowing, and I kind of suspect neither does Ryan. I love it. He changes direction at least twice a year, and I really hope this year will be no different. I hope he goes just absolutely flat out, pulls it back a little bit, has a moment of sanity, and then goes on like a 5-game winning streak and turns it right back around and pushes for the playoffs. That would be my ideal Shamrock storyline for the year. It's
happened before where, like, if you look at I think when we did the 100th power rankings spectacular, I think I had the biggest standard deviation. I think Ryan was second, where he'll go on these waves of like unexplainable success. But Mark, he's got some goaltending and he's got some defensive depth and he's got some scoring. If he tinkers with his lines, he could make the playoffs this year, I think.
I totally agree. He's got Jacob Markstrom, who I know your West Coast guys are in love with that particular goaltender. Unlike the Barons, he does have a couple of legitimate top 6 scoring threats. If he can ride them, 40 minutes a game, no problem. But seriously, even like you look at a kid like Connor Garland, who's got quite the scoring touch according to the re-rates. He has some legit chance to get in the playoffs. I think I would not be surprised to see the Shamrocks either get into the playoffs or completely blow it up, as you say. You never know with Ryan which way he's going to go.
It's true, and looking at the numbers that Eric's crunched here, it's funny because it might be a perception thing, but like it's not actually all that far from the Barons and the Tigers, to be honest, in terms of numbers. Mm-hmm. But I think there's just some key impact players that they're going to score on the power play, and Markstrom can steal a game or two, and that's what's going to make the difference here, I think.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. Well, Ryan, best of luck, and I'm looking forward to you providing me with stellar power rankings material. It's really what I like about teams, or not, if I'm able to write about them easily. Here's another surprise. Eric, when was the last time the Spartans were this low on the preseason power rankings? Because they're 21st.
Yeah, not in living memory. This is going to be a weird transitional year for Sean. He's still bringing the heat with the forwards. By my numbers, that's the 17th best crop in the league. But everything else brings the team down. The defense is rough. The goaltending is rough. It was a big step for Sean moving away from Frederick Anderson in net and putting it all on Flower there. Big gamble on a 35-year-old goalie, but we'll see what happens down in St. Louis. It's going to be an exciting year.
That trade with the Buckaroos was crazy. I never know what to think for like a 3-for-3, including like Evander Kane and Fleury and Gaudreau, but Sean is definitely, I think, more active now than he's ever been in terms of like on Twitter and reaching out. Mark, do you find that as well?
Yeah, I think probably his kids have grown up, and that's probably why we're seeing more of Sean, to be honest.
Assistant GM.
Some of the off-ice improvements in his lifestyle, I'm just guessing. It also could be COVID-related, as we're all spending a lot more time at home. I'm finding that I'm spending more time on the league in the last 6 months. In terms of the Spartans, I mean, he's got Patrice Bergeron and Anse Kopitar, two Hall of Fame all-stars up front. But yeah, that's a pretty no-name defense. And the Flower and net is he's a mediocre starter in this league at this point.
He's gonna get a win every night. And of course the sim decided to give Bergeron a 69 defense, which shows that the sim is cruel. Because you think, well,
perfect sense to me.
At least they'll have a good defensive forward at Bergeron, and not really.
The perpetual silky candidate in real life, and 69.
That's not Sean's fault. Okay, and once again, we're rolling on the surprise train here. Don't get off at this stop just yet. We got more crazy to go. Eric, at number 20, the Norsemen.
Hard to believe how the mighty have fallen.
Has Matt's window shut, Mark?
Is it any coincidence that he is not showing his face on the power rankings this year?
Well, he said he was in the process of selling their house and that he's busy. He might pop in.
Convenient.
Yeah,
I don't know if he will or not, but it's true. Matt is not here. But it has been a while since we've seen the Norsemen this low, Eric. What happened? Why are they so low? For that.
It's a combination of factors. It's a true confluence. There are guys that received, shall we say, unkind ratings from the re-rate.
Yes.
And then there are, some age out issues. If I remember right, Matt had something obscene, like 5 or 6 high profile UFAs depart, including oh golly, I'm drawing a blank now, but he lost goaltending last year, or what else was it? Regardless, mega holes that he's unable to fill. Oh, Eric Johnson, that was a big one from his defense. The other big issue being Sidney Crosby is genuinely the only high-profile talent up front. Best Carlson, as Matt would undoubtedly say, is not best Carlson rated.
Right.
And Barzal likewise got a little bit of the re-rate smack. So, yeah, tough times. We'll see if he's able to pivot and do something with this club.
It's not the be-all, end-all, though. He still has lots of good young players. I don't think he's going to do like a full blow-up, Mark. Do you?
No, I think this is... obviously, he was trading away Ben before the draft, so he's sort of trimming off and sort of buckling down, I'm guessing, for the season. But I fully expect kids like Barzal, even Nylander, who I'm not a huge fan of in general, Kasha, all those are candidates to be well rated next year. My least favorite goalie in the league probably will not get re-rated any better than 68, but you never know. In that other league, he's on a team that is also somewhat on the rise. So I would expect this is what we would call a soft rebuild for the Norsemen.
Right. Yeah.
I don't see Matt ever going full tear-down rebuild. He's got too much pride for that.
The Vipers are at number 19. Now, this is a pleasant surprise, Eric. I know the Vipers, they've had very much a roller coaster team. They've got some good young talent. Why are they probably higher than I thought they would be?
Oh, for me at least, this is great to see. Bryce has put a lot of work into this team. He's made a lot of significant moves over the years, moving on from Couture and the Hall thing. So there's been a lot of big acquisitions, big trades, trusting in the development of guys like Provorov. That's, if I had to pick one guy off that team to start my own club around, that would be it right there. That kid's a perennial number 1 ranked SICHL kind of defenseman. He just ticks all of the boxes as far as getting the ice time in Philly in that other league. Really, they're only brought down by the goaltending, and even that is softened a little bit because even though they don't have top talent, they've got depth. You look at Hogberg and Tokarski in those 2 and 3 spots. Pro tip for you guys in the league, our goalies get injured a lot. and you need a decent backup, and you need a decent third string, and you probably actually need a decent fourth string if Mr. Orum's team last year is any indication. So, yeah, go out there, get your goalies, and live off the depth.
There's a reason that we factor in 3 or sometimes 4 goalies, as you mentioned, or Mark. I don't think anyone can point to a single year where they can say my starting goalie never got injured. Always happens.
I certainly wouldn't want to look at my last season, but I did have a starting goalie that played 82 games. So
I feel like you should get a banner for that.
Maybe. I don't think I was the only one. I think there were
Hellebuck
a
played 82
few.
the other year as well.
And I'm sure Tuukka Rask is not going to get injured this year and be out for 60 games.
Never
That would never happen.
Mark's not going to sim games repeatedly until that occurs. I can tell. Scum saving.
I won't. But the Vipers are, I think they're one of the teams. I mean, as Henry's alluded to, there are a few surprises. I think we have a bit of a changing of the guard this year in the SICHL. There are some teams that are finally hitting. The Vipers are not quite there, but they're on the verge. Bryce is a pretty savvy drafter. He's pretty active in the league, makes smart moves. I think he's been quietly amassing some solid depth and talent, and I think this team is probably a year or two away from really competing, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him make some noise this year if he can. As you say, his goaltending is not spectacular, but he's got some other pieces that are good. So
cool.
And speaking of that draft, he had my favorite first round of any team, getting Perfetti at 6 and Quinn at 13. I think those are both fantastic value picks.
Yeah, you definitely wanted 2 top 10 or top 15 first round picks of any year. You probably wanted them this year. And Bryce, those were good picks for sure. We have at number 18. Well, I'll give you a hint. The rule of acquisition number 18 is a Ferengi without profit is no Ferengi at all. And Norm has $61 million in the bank after free agency. So of course we have to mention that Norm's Fire Ants are number 18. Maybe a little lower than usual, but I don't trust the Fire Ants not to do something, Aaron.
Well, they did something pretty darn significant in the offseason, choosing one Steven Stamkos over Tuukka Rask, and perhaps inadvertently setting off an atom bomb in free agency by doing so. But beyond that, Norm's, if I may be so bold, predictable strategy of having some consistent players and then garbage outside the top 6 and the top 4 continues. So we're going to expect more of the same from him. Status quo.
And Mark, that Patrick Laine trade with Chasm was a monster of a trade. So we have 2 of the Fire Ants. This happened less than 2 weeks ago. So Norm got Patrick Laine and Der Argurchintsev. I'm really sorry. That's probably the wrong pronunciation. And he gave up Kadri, Hosang, Firstov, and a first. That's a huge trade.
Also quite generous for Norm. Unusual to see him making a fair trade. I love Eric's characterization of the Fire Ants as a couple of strong lines and then garbage. But the strategy has worked. How many times has Norm been in the Final 4 or Final 8? Mm-hmm. He's one of those teams that ever since he accidentally had a great draft in his first year has always been there. So
yeah, Norm, on the team pages, the banners are currently missing, but I know that they do have quite a few banners for a reason. Nobody trusts Norm. He's going to say he's going to not do very well, and then he's going to end up second in the conference like he always does somehow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, that is a fair assessment of Norm. Let's move on. A little bit of a surprise here, Eric. Higher than I thought, probably buoyed, inflated maybe by their really good goaltending. The Toronto Metropolitans. What a curious case. Eric, tell us about them.
Correct. This is, for me, easily the weirdest ranking out of any of the 29 teams. Okay. Their forwards, way down at about the 23rd best strength in the league. Defense, 20th. Goaltending, 5th. The 5th best combined goalie ratings in my model here. Carey Price, no slouch, pretty well-known guy. Jake Allen, oddly enough, the best backup in real life, I think, this year. Going to be one of the best backups in the SICHL this year. Not much to look at for the third, but not to get too much into how the sausage is made, but third goalies are only worth about like 6 or 7% in my ratings. Really, it's down to the starter and that backup being worth a ton. So, holy moly, he's got a lot resting on the goalie. And I didn't mean to run that, but I did. So enjoy it.
I like it. I did. Mark, do you think because of his goaltending assets, is someone going to be contacting them and seeing if maybe there wants to be a trade, or do you see them maybe holding on to both goalies for good?
Well, Price is his franchise player, so Price is not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere.
Jake Allen is definitely and he's under contract for 3 years. Depending on how things go in the other league, I could definitely see some people making offers to the Metropolitans. I think, not that I would ever question these rankings, but I feel like the Metropolitans are a little bit inflated here. This is a bit of a phantom ranking for them. I don't see them ahead of a lot of the teams that we have mentioned already.
Right.
As you said, it's the goalie ranking is buoying them up, and yeah, I don't see them as a playoff threat this year.
Okay.
And if anybody would know how to pronounce buoying, it's Mark McRae.
I'm not sure if I actually just pronounced it right or not.
I like two things about one. I like how all their goaltending prospects were undrafted. And
Yes.
they have one guy whose name is Alex Sakilop. I can't even pronounce that.
Sakeleropoulos.
Now that,
Yeah, you haven't heard of him? He's that 25-year-old Greek prospect everybody's talking about.
now that is going on the Wall of Fame in terms of namings in the SICHL. Fantastic. So he's got a little bit of work to do to stock his prospects, but he's got a ton of rated players and some tradable assets. So, yeah, curious to see how they do. If their goalies can steal them a playoff spot. Who knows? We've seen stranger things.
And as a sidebar, no team is, in my opinion, likely to be hit harder by the waiver draft than the Metropolitans. They had roughly half of their entire team exposed on there. It's wild. So we'll see how much of that gets picked over, but I expect they're going to lose at least 3 or 4 quality assets.
And we've got the waiver draft tomorrow at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, Mark, I believe.
7 Eastern, yeah. Well, this video is not going to be out until Wednesday, so...
oh, that's right.
The waiver draft happened a few days ago. Some extremely unexpected picks.
Players, you're watching from the past.
But as we record this on a Saturday night before the waiver draft, yes, it does look possible that the Metros could get picked over.
Excellent. I mean, not excellent for them, but excellent for the rest of the league. Now, this warms my heart. Probably, if you asked every SICHL GM to name a favorite team other than their own, the Wheat Kings would probably win. Eric, they're 16. As usual, Doug is in a fight here for a playoff spot. Pretty solid defense, pretty solid goaling, slightly weaker forwards, but you have them ranked 16th. So technically a playoff team. Are they going to make the playoffs?
They have to. It's Doug. Of course he's going to make the playoffs. The Wheat Kings are never on the outside looking in. This is what he does. He goes into free agency with the roster slightly questionable, comes out of it in a better position, makes 1 or 2 key acquisitions. I mean, that Anderson trade does make Doug one of my favorite GMs in the league right now. But beyond bailing my my sorry ass out here, he's put together a respectable lineup. Don't let the rating here at the 16 spot scare you off on this. He's got key players in key positions with sneaky good ratings. Like Bonino, only a 73 overall, but he is about as solid as it gets as a pivot. And with that 93 DF rating, he's going to be probably soaking up, like, I would wager at least 25 minutes a night. He's going to play him first even strength power play and penalty kill, probably be his top extra attacker, get every minute at the end of the game. So he's going to get a lot out of that that top group, guys.
And Mark, he has 3 defensemen. His top 3 defensemen all have 90+ DF. And his next 3 also have some pretty solid DF. Doug's going to get in the playoffs again, isn't he, Mark? He knows what he's doing.
I think so. In my persona of the general manager of the Fredericton Express, I'm currently not speaking to Doug, but prior to his unspeakable sin of bailing out the Schooners,
Eric, you've made so many friends this offseason.
he also was one of my favorite GMs. I guess I have to pick a new favorite GM this year, so that mantle is up for grabs, everyone.
Is it me?
I don't know, champ. We'll see. I don't want to call it too early. But yeah, I think Bonino was also a target of mine. I wasn't willing to spend that much money. I guess I'm still living a bit in the past in terms of where the market went this year. And I also didn't need a centerman maybe as much as Doug did, so that could be the case. But Bonino is a solid pickup for him, and yeah, that defensive core is going to shut you down in front of a solid, if overpaid, goaltender. So yeah, Doug will be in the playoffs.
That's good to hear. I'm really excited. I really like the look of their team. I shall be watching them with a keen eye and a vested interest. Doug, welcome back again. We're happy to have you, and we hope you're watching these power rankings and enjoying them. At number 15, we have Mike. The Edmonton Supersonics are right where they always are, right in the middle. They're not bad, but they're not great. Eric, what's going on with the Supersonics this year?
Excellent forwards, mediocre defense, poor goaltending. You got to sum it up.
It's a real pyramid. It kind of goes downhill. It starts good, and then you're sliding all the way down here. Incredibly
top heavy. If you've heard the trope build from the net out, Mike was off sick that day, and was like, I guess when he read the memo to do the exact opposite.
Right.
He's got Wheeler, Horvat, Tom Wilson, Tatar, Stastny, Kessel. Like that's a really solid top six for just about any team.
Sure is.
But then you look at defense, and Calvin DeHaan is his top defenseman. And to make matters worse, Eric Goodbranson is his number 2. So that's extremely concerning. And then getting even worse from there, Peter Mrazek is his starting goaltender. And I know Mike has very strong feelings about Mrazek, but they are misplaced. And he needs to give his head a shake on that one.
But he can make Mrazek a 4-year his RFA signing, so he gets to keep him for even longer. So that's
I'm certain he's very excited about that.
Mark, you probably know Mike's team better than anyone except Mike.
Yeah, well, so
we're battling it out.
I feel like Mike is doing a little bit what the Express of old did, which is a no-name defense that is sneaky good at being defense. None of his blue liners are particularly offensive, so they get hurt on the overall ratings. But he's got some solid D, some defensive D, in front of an excellent farm goaltender. So hopefully the D are keeping the shots to the outside, and Mrazek doesn't let him down. Mike has just always been very good at beating the sim. Historically, so I would never count him out, but I am surprised to see that he is down this low actually in the rankings.
Okay.
He's let himself go a little bit.
Think how much further up he would be if the sim didn't hate rookie defensemen.
Yes.
Neil McCarthy wasn't rated a 68. I mean, maybe he should be. I don't know, but that seems a little low.
I think the re-rates are done by somebody in Vancouver, actually.
They might be. All right. Cool. Well, let's move on then. We're like I said, we'll keep up a brisk pace here. We've got number 14. The London Monarchs are at number 14 in the SICHL preseason power rankings video edition. Eric, what stands out to you about the London Monarchs?
Same thing that stood out to me last year when I had them ranked, I think, 5th overall. It's goaltending. It's a bit weaker this year, thanks to that very sane Ben Bishop trade that should have happened at some point last season. But he got there eventually. Good job, Orem. And he got there because he still has Mackenzie Blackwood, whom has incredibly favorable ratings this season.
I think it's 23 too. I didn't realize that.
Defies all logic and reasoning. Anybody who watched the doubles at any point last year knows that that is a gift to Michael. And then Jordan Binnington, whom those of us who are more woke, shall we say, would know is potentially a problematic character, but pretty decent goaltender, at least as far as the Sim's concerned. So Michael's got a solid little lineup back there. He gets hurt a little bit in terms of depth, but his top forwards are as shiny as anybody's. Ovechkin being the jewel in the crown. So yeah, it's going to be another exciting season for the Monarchs.
Definitely. Mark, any thoughts about the Monarchs?
I'm sure, like everyone else, I was riveted to read his play-by-play of every single thought he had in the offseason.
That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Most of which were around consumption of alcohol.
You got to know.
I look forward to reading more about what's going on in the life of Michael Oram. I would have to agree, Blackwood is going to have a tremendous season in the SICHL, surprisingly so. Binnington, I've never been a huge fan of in general. I don't think he's a long-term star in this league. I think he's a bit of a Matt Murray for me. But Ovi is Ovi. And I mean, yeah, exactly as Eric said, he's got some stud couple of forwards up there that will make things interesting in London as always.
Yeah.
And if I can make a note on relative position in the rankings here, going from 15 to 14 here represents a major break in the tiers. Mike had a lot more in common with the teams like 5 spots below him than he does with even the one right in front of him. And ditto, Michael's got more in common with teams 9 through 13 than he does with the Supersonics. So huge gap as far as the ratings are concerned.
I say this every year. That's a good point, Eric. I say this every year. The top teams and the bottom teams in the SICHL power rankings are usually quite easy to do. But once in a while, you'll get sort of like 6 to 16 range where it's like flip a coin here. Like it's really difficult for me to determine that, and it's equally difficult to do so here. But Michael has the right players at the right positions. I think you said that earlier about another team, but he kind of does. In terms of the over-under of how many goals these guys are going to score on me, being division rivals, probably 6 a game. Because you're looking at like guys that are like, is there even a team in front of me? I'm just going to put this in the net, basically when I want to. So my only hope is injuries on his part, really, which I hope doesn't happen, of course. All right, let's move on. Lucky 13, we've got the Ottawa Slammers, who have outstanding goaltending, 3rd best in the league, and then sort of middle of the pack on forwards and defense, so they are 13th overall. Mark, tell us about the Slammers, if you can.
Well, I actually was surprised to see the Slammers up this high. Pat has kind of fallen off of my radar a little bit. I haven't been paying attention to what the Slammers were up to. I see that his franchise goaltender, Hudobin, is a bit hurt right now and probably not likely to start the year.
Oh, dear.
So he's going to have a bit of a rough start to the season, I think, because he doesn't have much of a backup goaltender. That's not the pot calling the kettle black right now.
Right.
And I know he loves Carlson, so hopefully Carlson will be able to play some defense in front of whoever is between the pipes, because Pat's only got 2 other rated goaltenders after his injured starter.
Eric, at least Carlson has a slightly better defensive rating this year, and he's actually got his defensive ratings on his defensemen are good, and Pat knows the sim pretty well. I could see the Slammers in a playoff spot.
Yeah, Pat is a known sim wizard, and I'm going to give him credit for that backup goalie there. Chris, God help me here, Dredger. Let's go with Dredger.
That looks like an auto-generated name.
He's a challenging one. He's actually going to be my case study for what ratings matter for goalies this year, just as a pro tip to anybody else who's paying attention. He has 95 style control, which is among the highest in the league, if not the highest. And my understanding is that's a particularly important stat. So we're going to see if that actually plays out for him in real time. But yeah, just a team with a few mega stars up top and really not a heck of a lot else. So a lot of heavy lifting for these guys.
I like how a goalie Pat drafted 8 years ago in the 3rd round, probably forgot about it. And now like the opening 20 games are probably going to be on this guy's shoulders. I love it. It's really cool. All right. Well, Pat, always a threat. And number 12, here we go. We finally got to one of you guys' teams, huh? Mark, you're up. Well, number 12, the Fredericton Express. You are probably not a lottery team this year, sir.
No, I wasn't a lottery team this past year either, Henry. Thanks for noticing. How much time do we have? I mean, we could talk about this team for a long time.
We've got a bit of time now.
Let me just bring up this roster now. Unfortunately, the injury bug did hit me in preseason.
Right.
My boy Pierre-Luc Dubois.
You've got one injury. Don't be a baby.
Don't get me wrong. I love injuries, just not when they happen to me. Yeah, Pierre-Luc's is a little bit banged up, but I'm pretty happy with the way my roster is shaping up. There's a lot of great backup goalies available in tomorrow's waiver draft. I'm looking forward to selecting James Reimer. Yeah, I've got great prospects coming up. I've got half-decent forwards now. My defense has been solid for years, and I have the best goalie in the league. What else do you want to say? Man,
so when looking at that goalie, Vasilevsky was drafted 2012, 16th overall by you. Oof. At 13, Guy picked Cody Ceci. At 14, Don took Malcolm Subban. At 15, I took Olli Mata. And then at 16, you took Vasilevsky. Mark, I think you probably had the best first overall pick that year.
It's looking like
8 years ago.
I don't know if I should admit this, but I actually was hoping to get Subban that year.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Don, for saving me from myself. I wanted one of the two goalies, and I had Subban ahead of Vasilevsky. So.
Man, it's so great looking back at stuff like that. Absolutely crazy. But hey, let's not shake a stick at Malcolm Subban's 57 overall rating. Anyway, yeah, the Express are looking really strong. Hard to believe a couple years ago that they had the lottery pick, but they've got a lot of great players. Eric, anything else you want to say to Mark? It looks like he's on his way, terrifyingly up.
It's the hallmark of the Express is that defense. Has been for a few years now. Hamilton Hronek is a rising star, I think. Spurgeon, whom I pointed out and it hasn't been fixed yet, is listed as 5'1" in his player profile. I think might have something to do with his 49 strength rating. That's a glitch, my friend. But then you got Werenski as well, and a few other fairly notable characters like Joka Harju coming up. So continuing to build from the back out. Vasilevsky, the anchor, strong defense up front, and a couple key players at forward. It's a strong call. I'm not looking forward to the Lobster Bowl this year.
No. Jared Spurgeon, 5'1". Mark doesn't believe in heightism. He'll draft anyone and have any player of any height on his team. Good stuff.
Well, have I got the toddler for you, my friend? Holy moly, she's great.
Mark, great job. You've got a great roster. And yeah, I don't quite think you'll go on that run where you win 46 or 7 games in a row, but you're probably going to win quite a few games in a row at some point. So great job.
I like the way you think, Henry.
Was that? Yeah. I mean, it might happen. I don't know. And I've got Mike Smith still, so maybe I'll make it to the finals.
Hey.
Calgary is at number 11. Not super surprised, Eric, but a little surprised to see Calgary this high. Matt's obviously been a little busy.
A busy bee. That's what he does. Yeah. I applaud the work. Some of it this year, some of it in lead up to this. Securing Robin Lehner for 4 years, I think, is going to pay dividends. That's a hell of a goalie, and at just the right age apparently. And this is another team that's boosted in the ratings significantly by the strength of the goaltending. Olmark being a fantastic backup, and that Neljokovic kid was pretty solid number 3 again with some surprising ratings. Giordano holding down the fort on defense, and yeah, it's a little questionable after that, but you know, we've shown before that defense isn't the be-all, end-all. Where the real strength is up front with Kane and Scheifele. That's a two-headed monster. Brian Rust with some surprise ratings out of nowhere, and it kind of falls apart after that. So another team really heavily relying on its stars.
Mark, is this the only team? Now, I know you don't know this off the top of your head, but is this the only team with 3 90-plus scores? That seems crazy. Even Kubalik, who is 69 overall, has a 90 scoring. So Matt's going to put a lot of biscuits in the basket.
Yeah, I don't know that stat off the top of my head. But,
I don't know that either.
Yeah, that's more of an Eric question.
Yeah.
But Calgary's solid everywhere. So they're going to be good this year, as they have been for a couple of years now. Yeah, Patrick Kane is magic. So I fully expect Matt to have a good season.
The scouting tab, the scouting page currently doesn't have team, so we can't actually check. But I think they're the only team with it.
Yeah, they appear to be. I see a couple with 2. But,
yeah.
Yeah, nobody jumping off the page otherwise.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, guys, we're getting really into the big boys here. We're in our top 10. There's very, very few teams going forward that you would not expect to not just make the playoffs, but be potential championship favorites, including a couple that I'm like, whoa, did we flip the rankings here? Because there's 2 teams on here that haven't been on here either ever or, well, no, actually with both of them ever. So that's pretty exciting. But these guys have been around for a long time. Mark, let's start. I mean, it seems appropriate to start with you on the Crunch at number 10. What can you tell us about Kansas City? What can you tell us about your brother's devious intelligence of hockey mind? What's going on?
Well, Kirk's one of the smartest guys that I know. And he spends a lot of time poring over stats, and he's a very thoughtful person in general. And so, yeah, his team is, again, is well built everywhere. He's got, kids like Austin Matthews, the always underrated Aaron Ekblad, and he's got some young Shishturkin coming up in nets as his backup.
Wow.
Kirk is good this year. He's in the weak conference. He will definitely get a home ice advantage. And who knows what he can do from there. And his team is built to be good for quite a while. I haven't looked at. Let me just click over to his finances quickly to see. Oh, he doesn't quite have $100 million in the bank anymore, but he's well built for another 5 years at least here.
What a shame! A shame for me. Eric, the Crunch are going to be, as Mark said, the Crunch are good now, and they're going to be good for a long time. All their best players are like 22, 23 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair.
It's deeply unfair. It's unjust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kirk, did you think about the rest of us when you decided to be so good at this?
I'll say this for Kirk, too. He's finally cracking open the coffers and supplementing that young core with some major hauls in free agency. He is my kindred spirit from the FA atom bomb kind of territory, with landing Alex Edler for, I'm just doing the math. He's at a $30.9 mil contract, got a bonus of 10.3. So that was, what is that? That's a $41.2 million bid. I like that it couldn't just be 40, that he needed to go to 41.2. Just to be sure. Just to be on the safe side.
His bid on one player is more than my entire payroll this year.
That's more about you than it does about Edler, buddy.
I'm in trouble. Yeah, it's as usual. It's pretty. What's amazing to go back and look at old power rankings and see teams like Kirk and some others like way down there. It's like it's hard to remember a time when Kirk wasn't one of the best teams. I mean, he got 2 back-to-back number ones, and he's like, "That's it. I'm good. Rebuild done. I'm good now forever. I'm going to win a championship here and there." Very cool. So, Kirk, I'm looking forward to losing to you once again. Now, wait a minute. We have an error here, Eric. It says that the I can't say it. All Bears.
Bears.
No, the like AU, like periodic table. Never mind. So we have the newly named Acadia Grizzly Bears dropping at 9. Now we're dropping them to 9th because of the name change. It can't possibly be anything else, right, Eric?
It's pretty reasonable. And for the record, I'm calling them the GRUNGE from now on. Like, good day, madam. GRUNGE to you. They have, yeah. So Braden Holtby done them wrong. That's really the easiest way to sum up why they're so far down.
Oh, okay.
7th in forwards, 4th in defense, and way back at 15th in goaltending.
Right.
So that Pittsburgh kid that I know he loves so much.
I also love
solid. Yeah, and I know you got a soft spot for him too. He's looking like a pretty solid goalie. Will the inexperience hold him back? He thinks yes. And he certainly hopes yes. Holtby should be a terrible backup, which also makes me very, very happy in my inside spot. And Giroux is going to be his usual monster self. So if that's the only weak spot in the armor for Guy, so be it, I'll take it. But another strong Lobster Bowl contender.
I swear that the 2012 draft is so weird. It's one of the only drafts I swear where like round 2 and 3 is better than round 1. So he got Parayko and in the 3rd round. You know it's a team is good when like ranking 9th out of 29 is disappointing. Mark, is there any reason not to be terrified of Guy's team as usual this year?
Well, I mean, his top prospect, Tristan Jarry, as you guys alluded to, as his starting goalie, is not the most fearsome starting goalie in the Canadian Conference. The rest of his team is stacked. But will Jarry be able to be the superstar that Guy expects him to be this season? We'll see. I personally hope not.
Yeah, for the Lobster Bowl purposes. And as usual, he has a ton of draft picks, so we could trade for a better starter. We'll see. The starting goalies are at a premium, as usual. So it might be Guy's downfall, but I will still bet on Guy before betting against him. So the Grizzly Bears, with their first ranking spot ever, find themselves at number 9. And of course, we are counting again because now we've started a new 100 list. Right, Eric? So when we get to 200 in 7,000 years, whenever that is, this is going to count. So everyone, keep in mind. At number 8, unsurprisingly in the top 10, we have the Reykjavik Riders. Maybe surprisingly, maybe a little lower than I thought they would be, but they're still overall extremely solid. Their Panarin signing doesn't seem so crazy anymore, does it? Eric, tell us about the Riders a little bit.
Panarin is looking downright reasonable. He's locked up on a 10.8 4-year deal. I mean, that's good money right there by Sylvain.
Sure.
Solid purchase. He was ahead of the curve on that one, if anything, which is no surprise. If you've talked to Sylvain at length previously, you would know he is way ahead of the curve on a lot of hockey-related stuff.
Right.
Scouting probably being the top of the list. Yeah, he's done well for himself with Varlamov and net, getting, I think, some pretty generous ratings, but no reason to question it. The defense is not elite, but it's extremely solid. And there are some guys there that I think are probably a bit underrated. I'm actually a big fan of Dylan DeMello in real life Winnipeg. And up front is just the classic Riders, endless horde of scoring forwards. He can roll a full 3 scoring lines and arguably a 4th even. And there are very few teams in the league that can follow up that kind of depth.
I swear, every time I click on a player, they were drafted in 2012. And Dylan DeMello, 2 things. 1, his profile picture is hilarious. 2, he was drafted in the 7th round, picked at 175. So if that doesn't show you that you might find a useful player anywhere.
Sorry, I'm dying over that picture right now. That's fantastic.
As excited as I am about his profile picture, or he's got a slap shot. Mark, I think as usual we're always impressed with Sylvain. I really enjoyed his draft preview with Ian. Penny on the Riders.
Yeah, I'll echo that statement about that the podcast that he did with Ian. I'm not kidding. I listened to that podcast 3 times ahead of the draft. Sylvain is clearly our draft insider. But when I look at his team, I just see Braden Point, who sticks out to me as the guy who he picked up in the second round in 2014. So I had to just look. So don't feel too bad because he picked Sonny Milano in the first round of that draft. So he definitely got the best player in the second round, arguably one of the top 5 players in that draft, but his first pick has never shown up at all. So even the very smart scout Sylvain can sometimes miss. But yeah, Sylvain's got a stacked team, still does, and he will for a while.
Frankly, that gives me hope that even Sylvain can screw up 8th draft pick, or he'll land a really good defenseman in the 7th round, like maybe I will one day. Guys, now we're coming up to number 7, and I had to shake my head here to make sure that I wasn't drunk or asleep or both. I see Ian. It kind of pisses me off because I thought he was my rebuild buddy for years, and now he's ranked 7th in the whole friggin' league. Eric, what the hell happened to Banff? Bam!
Seismic shift. It's unbelievable. Some
Wow.
great drafting, some strong asset management, a couple mega trades, being just incredibly opportunistic, I think, would be how I sum up Ian. He's persistent, dogged in his determination to just accelerate this rebuild, or this build, I should say. Yeah, scary team.
Mark, Ian not only has 1 player with a 99 DF, he has 2 players with a 99 DF, and he has a 3rd defenseman, Mr. Chara, at a 96 DF, and he has pretty good goaltending. Is Ian going to win the whole thing this year? They might.
But speaking of, I just wanted to get back to your earlier comment, Henry, about Ian being your rebuild buddy. I think that the key difference between the two of you is Ian focused on the building aspect of the rebuild, and so he's tired. He spent a few years in the basement, and now he's. He went all out in free agency, picked up a couple of big wins there. He traded, as previously mentioned, the 1st overall pick, which he won in a lottery. Throwing it in your face, Henry. I can't believe he did that.
I'm under my logo.
But, Ian's got a scary team. He's got a great team right now. If you look at his top prospects, Heiskanen, Doc, Askarov, Suzuki. He's going to be a bit of a problem. And this is the first team that we would call part of the changing of the guard in the Canadian Conference. This team is going to be in the top 4 of the conference, likely, or they're going to be definitely fighting hard to be there. And they were nowhere in the picture last year. So
I am crying on the inside. The only solace I have is that I'll get to talk a lot about it in every power rankings. That's it. And at least he's in the other conference. Ian, great job. It's pretty astonishing that in a few years, you are now ranked 7th, whereas I think Sheetal and I have been hanging around the bottom for, well, let's move on. We've got...
If I can interject with a point on the tiers here, because I think this is one of the most interesting sections.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So spots 7 through 9 are separated by less than 1/100th of an OV point.
Oh, my goodness. Wow, you're right.
Yeah, they are unbelievably tight.
Oh, you're so right. In fact, Banff and Reykjavik tied.
Yeah, so they are literally like 1,000th of an OV average apart. It'll be really interesting to see how those 3 teams. Yeah, and likewise, very, very close to our next team here, coming in at number 6, just 0.05 of an OV point back. So that's a pretty tight tier there.
I love it. So there's parity here this year, GMs. It's very exciting. Maybe not every team has hope, but if you're, you never know. The other teams get more injuries than you, and you read the sim. Even you could be better than what you are ranked on the power rankings. At number 6 on the power rankings, we have no more the Denver Rapids, but we have the Portland Buckaroos. And continuing on, they've inherited a very good roster. and they still have a very good roster. What are the Portland Buckaroos going to do this year, Eric?
Anybody's guess. This is a team that is putting absolutely everything it's got into outscoring the opponents, because Carter Hart being their starter, while very, very talented young man, don't get me wrong on that, utterly unproven and with incredibly low experience and leadership for a starting goaltender. And then it really falls apart after that, because Craig Anderson is kind of borderline serviceable as a backup.
Right.
I think he's very overrated, actually, as far as that 68 OV goes. So a lot riding on the young starter in Hart there. But if any team can do it, it's these guys, because they've got some wildly scary talent, especially up front with Miller and Eichel, Larkin. Like, it's, yeah, that's scary good. And then they went out and made a trade for Jamie Benn as well. So not just resting on laurels here. He's going for it. It's good to see with new guy, JD Caldwell.
Jeff, welcome to the Power Rankings and to the SICHL. Mark, any advice you can give Jeff, or what do you think they're going to do this year?
I've been impressed with Jeff, or don't call him Jeff, JD, whatever he's going by.
JD.
Whatever he's going by these days. He also had a very thoughtful appearance on the podcast, which I enjoyed. And he, unlike a lot of first-year GMs, he seems to be grasping things pretty well. So I'm optimistic that he's going to be a threat here for a while here too. I noticed that he has ranked both his young goalies as his 2 top prospects. So I can't really disagree with that. Though I think Seth Jarvis was a great pick for him in the draft.
The most predictable pick of the entire draft too.
Very predictable, but you know, where I was at 15, I was, you know, I had a 2% hope that he might fall to me. A very intriguing young player that he got this year. So, yeah, Buckaroos, welcome to the league.
And he also has a guy named Ryan Gropp, which is we're going to add that. We're going to have to do another name Power Rankings. Outstanding. JD, welcome. We're excited to have you. We know you know your stuff. You've been in these leagues before, and unthankfully, you're in my conference, so I'm looking forward to losing you a few times this year. Mark, we're going to have to get back to the building part of the rebuild. See, Ian doesn't get it. The is the really important part, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. As shocked as I was about Banff, I am about as shocked, actually. We have a top 5 here, guys. The other 4 belong and have been here a long time. Chasm's Montreal Millionaires are 5th overall. So, Eric, it's safe to say that the rebuild in Montreal is done. Chasm said, screw this, I'm competing, and he's got a very good roster.
In it to win it. He's made some incredible moves, going for old guys. He's calling his shot on this. He's picked a window. You know, Couture is pending UFA. Keith's just got a year left as well. He's got some elderly guys in Letang, and you know, Kadri's no spring chicken either. So he's taken what he already had there with that really ridiculously strong core of young wingers, and just filled it out as best he could. You know, he's kind of lacking that super elite all-star first line centerman. Couture can fill in pretty admirably at that, but he isn't quite that. But otherwise, it's pretty hard to find fault in the roster. And you know, that Ben Bishop trade was absolutely a cannon shot on signaling the end of that rebuild. There are
very few goalies as good as him. I like the trade for sure. Mark, are you fearing Montreal? They're right next door to you.
Well, Montreal and I had a fight to get into the playoffs last year.
It was close.
It was looking like he could have steamrolled me in the end. It fizzled out a bit for him, thankfully for me, because this year he, as Eric says, he's taken his shot. He's bulked up. I mean, I look at the player that stands out to me is Svechnikov. I think he's a bit underrated probably right now. I think he's going to be a fantastic player for a long time. And Marner. Marner's always going to get a good rating because he gets a lot of press. And I mean, rightly so. He's a talented forward as well.
Right.
I don't know that Montreal maybe is as sustainable a threat as, say, a Banff, in terms of how much depth, young depth he has, but he's going to be an extremely tough team this season, and for a while, just maybe not as. I'm not as scared maybe of Montreal as I am of Banff.
He's so close to like Portland and Banff and Reykjavik in the ratings. Really, what put him over the top was Bishop. So we'll see if Bishop stays healthy. That could be the difference maker for sure. All right, we're going to keep going here. Like I said, a good pace. We're going to get this done in under 2 hours, unless we want to talk about Don, the Huskies GM, for hours, which we probably could. As usual, the Huskies are in the top 5. They're 4th overall. If you remember, in the 100th edition of the Power Rankings, Don was only behind Eric and Guy all time for the Power Rankings. They were 3rd overall. So Don has been good forever. He is still good. He has the 2nd best forward core. He's just lacking a little bit on goaltending. Eric, is that a reason? Can Don win it all this year?
Don could win it all pretty much any of the last 5 years, from what I remember. That team has been there and solid every single year, and Don doesn't seem to make any real steps backwards. It's always moving forward. It's always, 1 or 2 significant moves per year, and that Nathan MacKinnon trade was enormous and should put him over the top at some point. Worth mentioning that the 2nd best forward core in the league is led by the 2 highest rated forwards in the league, in Zibanejad and MacKinnon.
Right.
Ridiculous ratings there for Zibanejad. But everybody gets a gift from the sim once in a while, and Don's gonna take that one quite happily, I suspect. And if the sim giveth and the sim taketh away, they've taken it from John Gibson. That's the karma at play here. Because Gibson,
3.
You may recall I said last year, if I had to pick one young goalie to build my team around, it'd be Gibson. Sorry about that, Don. That didn't work out so well for you this year.
And I was wrong. He actually has 3 90-plus scorers as well. So Don has an absolutely lethal group of forwards. Only second to the league in terms of, or only second to the Revolution, sorry, in terms of firepower.
Come here. Come say hi.
Hi, Eva. Are you going to help with the Power Rankings?
Are you going to help with the Power Rankings?
No, I'm just going to tell you something.
Oh, what are you going to tell us?
Daddy?
Yeah?
Is it okay if Mommy does bath?
Yes. It's okay if Mommy does bath time.
And is it okay if the bath is really short so Mommy can do bath? Because she's really tired.
Okay, that's fine. It can be a short bath, and then I'll come and do treat and bedtime. Bye. And there we are, gentlemen. Continue. Oh, and she's not wearing pants.
I was going to say, I don't know if you noticed she wasn't wearing pants on the way. We'll have to edit that, I think.
How do we recover from this?
We can't. It's appropriate that it happened during Don's
I was just going to say, it's appropriate that it happened during the
Is there anything left to say about Don?
I mean, I'm glad that Eric admitted or owned up to what he said in last year's Power Rankings, because I certainly didn't forget who his favorite young goalie was, who he would build his team around. But yeah, I mean, Zibanejad is the most surprising highest scorer in SICHL history, I think, this season, if that happens.
Yeah, wild.
Did not see that coming.
A huge amount for MacKinnon, but it might be worth it. Don's been knocking on the window for a long time, and he might get in this year. Let's move on to number 3. And I don't know how we talk about mad scientist. I don't know how the hell he does it, but Dustin, again, despite no draft picks, is 3rd overall in the league. They have a crazy forward group, they have a crazy defensive group, and they have a pretty good goaltending group. Mark, what else? Yeah, what else can you say about Dustin's aces that we haven't already said a million times before?
He's projected to be about $100 million in the hole at the end of the season. Is how he does it.
There we go. We haven't said that yet.
Let's just not forget that somebody is going to have to bail him out, or or we're having to burn his team yet again. But somehow he has managed to not totally decimate his team financially every year. He basically has to make the cup final in order to keep this viable. I shouldn't have been surprised that once again he's found himself with one of the highest, if not the highest payroll, now that someone's helped to bail out the schooners in the league. But yeah, Dusty's got has done his usual. That's what's happened in Las Vegas.
Dustin is
gonna ace.
I think the best follow on Twitter. Eric and I saw him at the draft in Vancouver. It was awesome. He came over and said hi. But he's just has a ton of great content. Content is when you make content making fun of me. Ton of great content with his job at TSN. Very entertaining. Obviously knows his stuff. We love having him in the league. Thanks, Dusty. And let's move on because the Aces are going to kick my butt once again. And we got to talk about now. I don't know if we can call it a rivalry, but what people don't remember is once I was a good team and I beat Jeff all the time. And now it's completely reversed. So I don't know if we can call it a rivalry anymore. But we got to talk about it because he's on the list and that sucks. Eric, the Revolution are the second best team in the league. They have the #1 forward group, the #1 defensive group, and the second best goalie group. So they're really, really good.
Yep, darn good team. And worth mentioning just how darn good they are. There's a mega gap between them and the Aces.
Is that right? This is the next tier.
This is the next, very, very clear 1 and 2 tier. Bigger gap between 2 and 3 than there is between, let me do the math here, 3 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so that gives you a bit of an idea.
So this is Jeff's easily one of the cup favorites. Mark, looking at the Revolution's team frightens me because their top 3 forwards all have 99 passing. I didn't even think that was, I thought the sim broke for a second there. I'm scared of the Revolution. Should you be?
I mean, I shouldn't be because I'm barely going to play them this year, if ever. But most of the league should be afraid of them. I mean, if you believe that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are any good at hockey.
Questionable.
A lot of people seem to believe that is true. Connor Hellebuck is not my favorite young goalie in the league, but he is quite good. And he has been rated quite good.
And he was drafted. Guess which year he was drafted in? Just guess. It's 2012. What is going on here? Again, I'm not making. I didn't even mean to do this.
I think we need to go back and see who you drafted in 2012 because clearly it was no one.
No, it's fine. That's okay. Blah blah blah. Nobody.
Nothing to see here.
I mean, it could be one of the reasons why you're no longer rivals with this team. It's yet another team that has built.
It's true. I'm in the stage. Yeah. As usual, Jeff's team is horrifying. He got ousted last year. Eric, do you see any, can he go far in the playoffs? Maybe he doesn't have a ton of experience in leadership, but it's probably slightly better than last year. What's going to hold him back, if anything?
I mean, it's really nitpicking, but he doesn't have those super elite penalty killing kind of two-way forwards.
Okay.
It's a lot of scoring, even fairly physical bunch. It's just that the defense ratings aren't staggeringly good. And then on defense itself, it's hard to find fault. It's the highest OV group of any team in the league.
Right.
But that being said, it's a lot of OV because of high experience, high checking in a few cases. The puck handling is good, but not great. The passing is good, but not great. So, a big injury to a Ryan Suter, for example, will put a big dent in his ability to get the puck up ice.
All right. Well, that's enough talk about my rival. Eric, you're the #1 team. Mark, what should we say about the Scooter? It's appropriate that the champions are the #1 rated team. They spent $50 million on Tuukka Rask, so they have the best goalie in the league. What's going to stop Eric's murderous rampage of doom?
Yeah. Well, the champ is gunning for a repeat. Let's say that. He's come out firing in free agency. As previously mentioned, it was previously admitted it was the most fun he's had in years. He and Ian, I think, together broke the market this year. I mean, it's been kind of like the Toronto real estate market. It's been this bubble that we've been talking about for years. It had to burst. Except in the SICHL, it was just a cash bubble. There was so much cash in the league. Eventually, the market was just going to go crazy. And it seems like that's this year. And yeah, the Schooners are well poised to repeat. Now, I certainly, as I mentioned earlier, would not wish ill upon Tuukka Rask's sim avatar in this league. But I don't think anybody would cry if Tuukka Rask had a season-ending injury in the first game.
That would be fairly delicious karma. I'm picturing Mark sitting behind his desk there, wrapping a little Tuukka Rask voodoo doll as we speak here, putting hints in it every night before bed.
It might happen, but Eric was very proactive. He has a lot of goalies. He's hoping that Officer Bobrovsky gets back on the case, but not really needed this year. We'll see. Eric, what do you think? You got to be confident. You got to have some swaggle.
You would think that. I am racked with insecurity around this roster.
Did you hear that, everyone? He's mentally weak. Get him.
Yes. It's a trying time. If last season was a pressure cooker to finally get my first championship, this year weirdly more so, because I only will likely get one chance ever to repeat, because I don't anticipate I'm going to get another championship if I don't pull it off again. So that's why I go in completely guns out here, scorched earth.
As you should. There's only been 3 repeats in league history, and only Guy in basically the last 15, 17 years, I think, something like that I was looking at earlier. So it's a tough task. It's a tough task to win, even tougher to repeat. So the Schooners are going all in. And it looks like we've got some pretty clear favorites, but we also have some teams that happens every year where a team overperforms, goalie gets hot, or some injuries happen to the other team. So you never really know. Guys, any final thoughts on the preseason? We were almost ready. The waiver draft is tomorrow. Any final thoughts? Let's go with Mark. Are you excited for this season? What do you think?
I am. I mean, before we recorded this, I was watching NCAA hockey, which has just started. Wisconsin and Notre Dame were starting the second period before we got here. I am, like I think a lot of the members of this league, starved for hockey. So I am just excited to have the league start and have the games count, and let the Twitter tweets fly.
Absolutely. Our Twitter foo. Actually, I'm convinced that's how somebody found out about the Gabers. Our Twitter foo is strong. Eric, any final thoughts? You got to be, like you said, I know you're nervous, but SICHL opening day, it's always a big day.
Sure. Absolutely. No, I'm excited to finally get the season going. I've been this is the hardest I've ever worked in any off season in my I think 15 years in the league now. So fingers crossed that the team does what I'm paying it to do, because I'm paying it a lot. It's and for the record, with that first overall ranking, because I recognize, I made the ranking sheet and the formulas used to do it. That's goaltending pushing me up above Jeff. So unless every team in the league has one major injury to their goaltending, Jeff's team is actually probably better than mine on paper. But if injuries happen like they did last year, then I'm going to look so smart.
All right. There's only one way to find out. Everybody, thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Big thanks lately to all the community activity, everybody on Twitter. Thanks to Ian for keeping the podcast going. We're all big fans of that. Eric with the Fanatic. Mark and Mike for running the best fantasy league I'll ever be a part of. We really appreciate all your hard work. And everybody, if you want to get involved, ask Mark and Mike. They've always got ideas and they always need help. So if you're wondering if you can contribute in a way that that some of us have, get in there. You definitely will get more out of it, even if your team is really bad like mine. So thanks again, guys. Thank you both for joining me. Let's do a final cheers.
Oh,
and
we're all out.
Thank you. I'm almost done. That's perfect. And this has to be a record for the shortest rankings ever, which is good. We wanted to keep it brisk. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you out there.